Hi there, Randy Green here. Let's continue the little section on Dharma, Karma, and Skandhas. And I will return to the Eightfold Path, but here I will work a little bit with the Dharma, Karma, and Skandhas, because I think that we cannot truly understand the Eightfold Path and what is directed to us there unless we understand the wheel of samsara, or the realm of samsara, and what we have of karma, what we have brought with us of patterns from past lives, as well as the dharma of this life. And I want to go in and say, okay, who determines the dharma of this life? Is it something that is just brought from life to life? Or it could be, for some it is. For others, it's a little bit more complicated, and I want to tap into some of that as well. So I'm continuing with I work with my past lives as well, and it gives a lot of insight in who and what we are as people today, because it gives explanations to some of what we could call the subconscious inclinations that we have, such as if we continue with the idea that I was a Buddhist monk in my past life in the beginning of the 90s and died in 1959. A horrible, sad death, but still a sort of victory, because that's what I kind of tapped into, that I was victorious because I was a very devout and very, I was a Buddhist practitioner, and I was a monk, and it felt politically correct. I had all of these. I felt righteous, to be honest, which is probably not the right feeling to have when you are practicing Buddhism. But I know there are different branches within Buddhism. You have, for instance, the Bodhisattva, that where you use your awakening, the body is awakened. You use your awakening and you stay behind. It's the analogy is that you climb like the mountain goat to the top of the mountain, where you reach the enlightenment. You stand in the rays of the sun, and you are embedded in that, and you see with clarity everything that's going on in the world. And you have that full comprehension of this is what it is, this is what life is. And the sun is a gate, technically. It also, when you go into some of your visions where you jump between the planes that are inside of reality, you go through gate systems that looks like a sun, where you are not afraid of going into the sun. You will be absorbed by the sun. You will be purified by the sun. It will erase everything that is no longer of use. And then you pass through that one, and you get to a new level of your inner being, the formless part of you, to put it that way. And that's typically done in higher earth. There are also gates in the underworld where you are not going up the ladder, but where you're going further down. And these gates are something entirely else. But there is an escape path out of the underworld, or the lower earth, old gate systems. And these are the ones that are blue-white. And if you go into them, you cease to exist completely, and only very little of you will be transferred to other domains, so to speak. But if you go through the solar gates that are part of the inner visions that you're doing in meditation, and you get there when your energy system is ready to recalibrate itself, that is kind of a visual of recalibration of your energy system to a higher state of awareness, to put it that way. So that's part of the awakening process as well. And the Bela material calls this initiations, which is performed by the planetary hierarchy, which I do not agree with. But again, if we go with the Bela material, the planetary hierarchy in this older version took off also in 1959, interestingly enough. But because that's where Alice A. Bailey died. So that was their level of teachings and whatever. And it said in one of the books that version of the hierarchy is moving on, and other teachers are coming in. So to put it that way, so the analogy is that you stand there and you're ready to move into these different solar gates, but the Bodhisattva has so much compassion for the world that he or she turns around and goes down the mountains and go in and teach others to do the awakening path and get enlightened and understand that this is what life is about. So that is what the Bodhisattva does, and these can both be males and females. So with that, we could say that if the Buddha had that experience under the Bodhi tree, which is the awakening tree, right? And he did get enlightenment, and he didn't go through the gates, but he remained and he began to teach. Then he was the first Bodhisattva technically to be in human form. And that is how we could perceive him, not as a deity, but as a human that got to the point where he understood, this is what it's all about, but I'm not ready to move on. I will stay and teach. And if we again go with the Alistair Bailey material, it's actually said there that one of the reasons why the Buddha has not, he's a lunar in their context, why he has not moved on is because he had too much compassion with humanity. He did not move on when he was supposed to. He stayed behind. So that is a sacrifice. Sorry about that. That's a sacrifice that the Bodhisattva does, a knowledgeable sacrifice that I can move on, but I choose to remain. So that is an interesting aspect of Buddhism as well. And then there are others, less known avenues of Buddhism, such as the one I was probably practicing, which you will not find any evidence of anywhere. But because these are some of the what we call the underground groups that are part of our world or have been part of our world. The question is if it's there anymore. But when we talk about, and if we say that that is part of Buddhism as well, then you understand a little bit why the Chinese are doing what they're doing. Not that it's right or anything, but if we do understand that there's also politics involved in it, and we actually have a faction within Buddhism that you can call more a warrior than the Bodhisattva practitioner of compassion, because compassion can be interpreted in many different ways, then you suddenly open up to a whole new avenue of understanding what is actually going on. But these different levels are kept hidden from public. They are never put into text. They are never shown anywhere. These are typically something that happens within the community, where these that have the talent for it will be selected. So that should also be put into context. And interestingly enough, when I was traveling to Spain with a friend in 2000 and when was it? 15 or 16? It was 15. I had this very, very again profound experiences. Such as meeting a stranger in the street and completely feel connected to him from my heart field, which was interesting. I should, of course, have contacted him, which I didn't, but I should have. That would have been interesting. But what I kind of got of experience going back to Spain with her, because she was of Spanish origin, was that her family were deeply involved in a very secret nun caste of nuns within Christianity in Spain under the Alhambra. And that's the Spanish word as well for the enlightened ones in Spain, a specific group of Christians that existed there that were, I can't remember if they were going against the Inquisition or they were supporting the Inquisition. I can't remember that. But there was this specific group of nuns that were working in hiding, fighting off evil. And the most interesting part about that is that Netflix actually presented a series in 2018 or 19 that was called The Warrior Nun. I was blown away because that was what I experienced in Spain in 2015. It was just kind of, what? That was amazing. I just love when these things happen, when it kind of, because there are movies out there's just pure BS. But then there are some where they really try to tap into some of our origin and try to activate these sequences in people by making movies where whatever is there, sub hidden patterns can be activated. And you understand that now when I've talked about the patterns. Okay, so with that understanding, we're saying, okay, we are, what we are today is the composition of what we have been in the past, right? So that's karma. These are the energetic patterns we carry with us. They are part of the 3 permanent atoms. If you want to do Bailey material, they're part of the causal body, or they're part of the upper template, or they're part of the expanded energy system that we have behind the physical form. And that has a tendency in time of death to comprise and go into these 3 round spheres that technically has 3 different colors. If you want to put it that way, they have 3 different configurations, because one is radiation and one is consciousness units and one is vibration. And they collapse, so to speak, in each life. That's part of what is being stored. And then when the time is right, they get pulled back in and go into that merged field between the parents from which a new life form can be generated. And then these 3 permanent atoms or spheres unfolds their content, and that goes into what becomes the biofield, the emotional field, and the mental field, and what is linked up to of the upper template that is technically still stored in the planetary library. So this is, and the whole game for some of the races that are here to get access to the planetary library. Anyway, so that's another discussion. Sorry about that. But for me, in that time, there are then different accounts of what happens when you die and you go to the other side. And there are, for me, whatever has been depicted in later history is not really what I remember, but it is what it is. Because there are confusions when people go in and get a vision of what happens after death. It also probably depends on what kind of faction you belong to or what part of the world you're living under. But what I can say here, and it fits very nicely into the whole, when we talk about being reborn, for instance, but the last time I was a Buddhist monk, and sorry about that. Need some water here. Wonder if I have some technology there that doesn't want me to talk. But if so why is that interesting to talk about our past lives in terms of who and what we are in this life? And that's some of the things I really want to work with in my advanced psychotherapy, as in kind of going in and say, yeah, you're not just this person in this life because you have got patterns from previous lives, and you technically have got traumas from past lives, which I have worked with as well in my awakening process. To get to that level of understanding where I actually see, well, first and foremost by remembering them, but also by that explaining some features that were in me and have been in me and has been a little bit unexplainable, such as when I took up healing, I could heal right away. Why was that possible? Because in a past life as a Native American, I was actually a healer there. And when I took up meditation, I knew things that were not described anywhere, and it went right on right away. And I did things automatically. They were part of my cellular memory, which I had not learned anywhere, and that ignited me right away. So this is because we've got past life where we have done it. We already has it in our cellular memory. It's part of us already. So the discovery is to go beyond that and get into, okay, who am I then? And that ties into two things. When I was a child, I had this often when I was going to sleep around the age of 7, something happens between when you're 7 and 8 and you go into, when you're 7, you technically go into what we call the beginning steps of being, of the hormonal changes that leads to teenage, right? That begins around 7 or 8. So there is a shift there where you leave being the child and go into what will become a young woman or a young man. And I had this recurring dream that kept coming back, or not dream, it was in between state. It was before I was falling asleep. And I still remember it because I loved it. It was I found it interesting. It was like a highlight in this continued endless path of boredom that it is to exist in this life. And I felt like that as a child as well. It was not just because it was boring and there was no entertainment. I think quite a lot of people today actually feel this boredom, but they don't know why. So they are just drowning themselves in different forms of entertainment that keeps them stuck in this world. But to be honest, I think the boredom is because they're done. They need to move on. They need to leave this system, but they don't know how. So therefore they are trying to patch the gap with all sorts of weird entertainments, and they are being led that way. And perhaps that's why there's so much entertainment industry now, because we are quite a lot of people that's supposed to move on. This is the end cycle. So to keep us stuck here, you can do the math. Okay, so as a child, I was in between states, between falling, when you awake and fall asleep, between alpha and theta, and that is two different states. And I knew as a child, I just knew that when you are in between states of awareness, that's a door. That's a kind of a window opportunity to go somewhere else. Not astral projection. I've never done that. Or yeah, I kind of did a couple of times when I was a kid, but I don't see it as astral projection today. But I know there are people that slips into their subconscious and then they wander around. And I've done that deliberately in meditation to clear up portions of my subconscious, literally going into the vision that was shown to me, or going into the whatever that pattern was and investigating it and unfolding its content. As I'm doing here, this is just using knowledge instead of emotional patterns. When you go in through the astral plane, it's emotional patterns. Here, mind field, it's mental patterns. So in the emotional patterns, you work through the different electrochemical emotional reactions that is tied to the body. Whereas when you go into the mind field, as we're doing here, then you work with the mental patterns that are connected to perception, to knowledge, to understanding of who and what you are, and to your belief systems, as well as your self-identification processes, as in, this is who I am or this is not who I am. And then what is important if I don't really exist per se, but I am a fluctuation of all sorts of personality structures, not that we suffer from multi-personality disorder. That's not what I'm talking about, because they are kind of in different sections and they are not knowing what's going on. No, we're doing an integration process of lost pieces of all the versions of ourselves we have been, and eventually that will merge and blend into a very, very beautiful energy pattern that is part of how we get out of the system. But we will, as we work with it, we will be in that for a period of time, but we will know it's just a period of time. It's not who we are. It's impermeable. It will not be there forever. It will be there because it's something that needs to be contained. First, it needs to be captured and contained, and then it needs to be transmuted, transformed, transmuted, and eradicated. It needs to be dissolved, to be extinguished. It needs to cease to exist, which is what we do with the transformation and transmutation process. That's what I call evaporation, of a lack of a better word. But as a kid, I had this going into sleep. I would go in and then I would have this enormous expansion where I would no longer be in my body. I could feel my body. I was absolutely present in my body. But at the same time I went into this white sphere that was around me. And it was funny because I could expand it. I could contract it. And I loved doing that kind of, whoa, now I'm that big. Whoa, now I'm elongated. Wow, now I'm enormously tall. Wow, now I'm enormously small. And I felt that was very funny. And I love that because that was a little piece of freedom that I technically had. But it was this, when I look into now, it was milky white. It was like, it was cloaking it was kind of, perhaps that's the veil. I don't know, but that was cloaking me from everything I was. And I was interested. What is that? What is that? But it never really ignited, or then I was pushed into the hormonal level and all these kind of things, and I lost that opportunity. But I remember it and I recall it, and today I will interpret it literally as that's the blockage. That's the thing. I was playing with it instead of getting rid of it. But that blocks us from accessing all of the imprints that we carry, which are technically the past lives. They are just imprints. They are not personality structures, as in, yes, I'm tapping into all versions of myself, but we technically are the imprint of it, and what is left that needs to be cleared out. So when I left in 1959 from Tibet, technically not in Tibet, but in China, then to get out of there, because I was probably done in the Southern Hemisphere. And that goes a little bit with some of the experience I had when I returned to Australia, but that's a whole other level of information I don't want to tap into here. But I was done with the Southern Hemisphere, and then I had to move to the Northern Hemisphere for reasons and purposes, and that makes complete sense to me. It's like this. Why does it make sense to you, Randy? I know it's like this. It's just kind of, I know it's like this. That it's without, you can't describe it, you can't explain it, and it kind of goes with a dream I had given to me in the age of 16 or something, 15 perhaps. Standing between two crossroads. I explained it before, between two crossroads where, of course, this druid character with a long staff, probably a holographic imprint of some of the elders, came to me and said, you have to choose between these two roads, and you have to search. It was longer than that. I'm just paraphrasing. You have to search high and low. You have to search everywhere to find the answers you need. But once you have looked into all of the answers that you can find, then you will find that that what you will know and what you will understand has no name and cannot be explained. And this is, I always had that difficulty in understanding what that was, but now I'm completely, oh yeah, it's not about going left or going right. I played with that idea for the left hand, the right hand. What is that? That was part of my journey as well. But it is this balance point in between. And if it was not a Celtic, but one of the elders, then it makes perfect sense, because what does Theravada actually means? It means the doctrine of the elders, and the elders are not the elder monks, but the elder councils that are part of High Earth. And then suddenly it all says, wow, the ring, you hear the pattern almost unfold itself into its highest potentials, right? So there is a point of that, because there was some, and I feel that so deep in me, there was some level of injustice going on there. And that level of injustice was that when I came up to the Northern Hemisphere, there are two gates from the Southern Hemisphere. One is through the Nibiruan gate that is now closed for reasons and purposes. And then you have the Egyptian gate, which has also been closed now. And that's part of the future of our planet, that there will no longer be soul migration from the south to the north. This is also being exemplified. We are now having doors that are opening, but in the future where things will look a little bit different, and there will be scarcity and these kind of things due to climate change. There will be different forms of solutions to not tilt the planet with migration into inhabitable areas, but literally figuring out, okay, how do we as a joint group on this planet create habitable environments on the remaining pieces of land that are left in the future, where we will work together to assist and support each other for survival. So that will change. But right now the gates are closing for reasons and purposes. But back then, the gate was open, and it was in as well as the Nibiruan gate was also open. And but with ISIS and all these kind of things that were taken out, and that was the end of that. But when we go into the Egyptian gate and what I experienced there, that's the brotherhoods, and I mentioned them in the Souls of Humanity and Left Wing, of course, and going through that. And I remember standing in front, it's like a panel, a half circle. You have full circles when you do the holographic trials, or you have half circles. The full circles are a giving over. That's where you're released of your contracts or your bonds. The half circle is symbolizing that you are being judged and you are being put into something because you have not completed your work here yet. So that's the half circle. So standing there in front of the half circle of the left wing, avian, mammal infused, because that's what the fourth cycle is led by, as things are now, that group of colonizers. So I was there, and I recall that I got that as a clear memory, as well as it was a vision in one of my meditations, where I got that completely clear in. It was just clear as day. And recalling what they said to me and why that was. And these are some of the things I've been working with. That was because I was shown my template. That's how I got the idea for the template readings, because I saw my own template. I saw my own energy system. I saw what it was capable of. And I also heard what they said, and also heard why they chose to do what they did, and why I'm in place where I'm in place, and why I am under that punishment they calculated, because they felt that it was necessary to do a punishment. And I have always been questioning whether or not that punishment is correct. And I feel, to be completely honest, that could be a misinterpretation, because it doesn't have that clear ding to it. Sound is a little bit muddy, so it could be inserted resentment or something, or it could be a resentment I have that goes from earlier existences I have had, where I had a little bit of issues with the humanoid councils and me. We have not always seen eye to eye, to be honest. So going back to the True Human and the Humanoid Project and the Pillar Projects and many of the discussions there. So that was also why, when I did see these left-wing brotherhoods and their councils, the Egyptian gate, they are humanoids. So therefore they did not treat me like I probably truly deserved. And that is also some of the things I'm carrying with me. This thing in my heart feel that kind of, why? Kind of, what the fuck am I doing here? I was supposed to be done, right? I was supposed to be done. Put it honest, say it as it is. It makes me sad when I say it, so that then I know, yeah, I hit the nail there. I was supposed to be done. I'm still here. That is fucking unfair. And that in itself leads to suffering, right? And leads to sadness and emotions and all sorts of stuff. And then I know, yes, I'm on track. Absolutely, because my heart field starts to vibrate. And that's sometimes what we perceive as sadness, but you could also see it as activation. And that suffering is a suffering that will lead to knowledge. So the suffering is not just, I sit down and sad and sappy and mourning and it's so unfair and get into the victimized state, but going in and say, that's it. I can feel my heart filled with that sadness because I hit the nail there. I hit that. That's what it is. And it feels relieving at the same time. It feels sad, but it feels like a sort of liberation. It's like a piece of clutter has fallen from my eyes, as is typically said. It's like another piece of the veil has been torn away. It's like ripping off a band-aid and said, wow, I got this beautiful heart-filled piece beneath it that has been shut down, but now it's open. And I remember when I went through my past lives as part of the subconscious, the emotional level, with one of the strongest recallings I had of Native American that were completely blocked my heart because of what happened there, the group rape, the killing of my loved one, the cutting off of my arm, the torture, all of these horrible things that are part of the past lives, because humans on this planet have been pretty nasty to each other. So all of that, going into that and recalling the trauma, the experiences, floating about my body, leaving that and being angry with the Wakantanga and having this, well, fuck you, heavenly being, and seeing one of the falling angelics, because I have a long history with them as well, as presented in one of the characters in that life, sitting on his horse, looking at me, getting taken out by the white man. And he was one of these dark-faced type of Native American tribes. I know the name of it, but it doesn't matter. So looking at me and enjoying my demise while I was being torn apart and raped to shreds, to put it that way, because you can kill a woman by raping her over and over again. So having that demise, and that's been part of my physicality as well. And that so that's been one of the past lives I had after I crossed. Again, you say, well, that doesn't add up because that was in the 1700s. So that would probably be before I crossed into this life and what I'm here kind of starting all over. So there are probably portions of my past lives, past type of energy system, because I put into a new one and into a new body that has nothing to do with who and what I am. It's a lone body. That's where the walk-in kind of comes in. But that experience and that emotional traumatization and working through that level was shitty piece of work, but it was what was blocking my heart field. So I had to go through it because that was blocking. And if I had shied away from that, I had never activated my heart field and I had never activated my healing potentials. So that was it. My heart field was like a little black raisin. It was completely destroyed by that experience, and including also some of the other disappointments, which is part of the suffering. So when we talk suffering and impermanence and Dharma and what we need to do and karma and what our skandhas are made of, it's not just this kind of, you're looking at the outside as presented with the Buddha and his beginning to search enlightenment. It was just what initiated his soul of this pain and suffering, and this kickstarted him. But the true journey, when he refers to suffering, even though it keeps referring back to what he experienced and say that's what samsara is all about, the outer reality, that is what he concluded. And I completely agreed. Compared to all of the past lives I've experienced, there's absolutely not much happiness going on there. And history confirms that as well. It's not a happy place. We might feel a little bit more satisfied now up here in the Western world because we have got some pretty well-organized systems. And that's probably why I had to go through the gate to get up here, because it's organized in a specific way. And I came from the Wild West in the Southern Hemisphere, which we kind of know. It's a different environment down there. It's harder. It's more difficult to live in the Southern Hemisphere due to climate and weather and old civilizations and the fall of these. And they are no longer on their highest, even though they are doing their very best, but many are overpopulated, and etc., etc., etc. Weird diseases, weird circumstances, environment is not what it used to be, and onward and so forth. So we are kind of, not that this is kind of saying, well, they're fucked down there because of their own karma, because we're not going in that direction. But there are certain laws and orders to our world as well, which is what's part of Dharma. And this is, people need to see these counsels and experience these things, because then they will know it's not just about me teaching you this and you'll say, well, that's interesting. Like you are hearing about Congress or whatever. That's interesting. But you don't really know what Congress is until you have been there and you sat in it and you have literally participated in the political work there. Then you will know what Congress is and what Congress is about and what's going on there. Until then, it will just be sorts of interpretation of what it is. Same with the councils, and same with the trials, and same with when you go as a soul or as a being of a non-form, the discarnated, as it's also called, in between lives, where you're being reborn and repositioned. So that goes into that understanding when we talk about that suffering can be contained and transformed and transmuted into an opening of the different access points, which I talk about in our energy fields. And we have to go through these. And that is done in energy work, that is done in meditation, that is done in contemplation, which is two different things. And it's also done in the way we live on a daily basis, trying to avoid to create more imprint, get us entangled again. And that's how I see the Eightfold Path, as a kind of, I got that understanding that I am here on the exit path or the return path. I'm to get out of here. I'm seeing everybody else that are doing their thing, and they are still in their cycles, and that's good and fine for them. That's part of the compassion as well, whether you are seeing it as a sad thing or you're seeing it as it's just kind of how it is, because that's the law. And then you go into this not so emotionally driven perception of it, but just kind of accept that these are the circumstances as things are. And then at the same time, having this, are you doing the Bodhisattva, which I asked myself, because the first time I got to that solar gate, and I was discussing with myself, should I turn around and use this for teachings? And I technically did that. But then other things came in the last 5 years. So anyway, so that is what it is. Do I stick around now as in kind of, I'm going to stay here? Not particularly. Now I'm doing the other. I'm walking through the gates and doing the different jumps on timelines and clearing out as much as I can. And then I will see what that will lead to at the end of my life, where I have the big question, do you want to move on or do you want to stay behind and get reborn? And I will wait with the question then. But now I need to clear out all the old mess. I need to clear myself out of everything that's connected to the Southern Hemisphere. And that was probably why I was drawn to Australia to begin that work. And that's probably what's been doing the last 5 years. And Australia are connected to the Nibiruan gate. So that makes sense to me in terms of that understanding. So when things begin to unravel their content in the pattern, then that level of the field is beginning to get cleared. And that will eventually lead to this. I'm pretty sure when we do the mental field, the emotional field has the solar gates, because it's the vibrational field that goes with the spherical concentric circles, which the sun is built of as well. So you go through different levels of the sun, so to speak. And that's what's in the Bailey materials called the central sun. You work with the rays, so you get to the core of the sun. That's again an analogy, but that is what it technically means. You work with the different timelines and the different aspects of your skandhas or energy fields. So you clear out the past and you follow the laws or the cosmic laws, both in your individual dharma of what you need to clear out to be able to get to the point where you are following the cosmic law in a very stringent way, where you literally everything you do will be under the cosmic law. So you have, again, double dharma. You have when you do the past lives and when you live and when you are under the cycles, you are under your individual dharma determined by a template and what you have of faculties and what you have of consciousness units that leads to this specific energy system, which we now established was the fourth Skandha. And that determines the faculties and the capacities you have in the three lower fields. And as you develop and clear out the three lower fields, then higher levels will descend from the template level. That's how I work with it. Whether or not the Buddha did so, we can only speculate. But I do believe that if we're saying, okay, again, if we play with the Theravada not being that was the name the monks gave it, because there are different sayings and how they received the information and whether or not it was given in an unbroken oral line from the original lay persons, which we kind of saw were killed, but that who revived it, what did they get of visions, what did they get in dream state, who gave it to them, was it Nagas, was it this TG insertion that then sparked it to life again, because there were some of the Syrian A's of the High Earth Councils that wanted it to be reactivated as a part of their bargain, seeing where things were going in our reality to keep up their end of some of the agreements they made with the incoming colonizing races, right? So that would have to put it in play again, saying kind of, yeah, that path was taken away to leave this system. We can't have that, because technically we will then show to the humanoid councils of which we are part that we have now completely shut everything down so nobody can leave this system. And that is against the law. You're not allowed to contain souls within a system. That's illegal. That's a cosmic law. So they would break that cosmic law. So that's also when we talk about transgression for the elder races, that has definitely also unfolded, which has been part of some of my work to assist them in their crossing over and what they needed to dissolve to be able to move on and have a little bit of a psychotherapy with me on that level. So that is also part of some of the things that are going on. And that could also be why they didn't want to let me go, even though I was ready, because because of who and what I am and the knowledge of the original Pillar Project, and by that, to some degree, had the architecture hidden in me for all the gate systems, well, then of course they wouldn't let me go. Right. So there are things you begin to see things come in context, and that's again speculation. But there are things that when I work the way through that one, that begins to fall into place, that makes sense to me. Not that it makes me all forgive them and become compassionate, because I still think it was a shitty move, but at least it gives understanding. And this is again, when you have a little bit more advanced psychological structure, you can completely understand why people are doing what they are doing, and you can completely understand why they have chosen to do, because they are who they are and what they have become. And you can see that in its full capacity, and you can feel compassion. I do feel compassion. It does hurt my heart field, but it doesn't make me go in, oh yeah, that's okay. You shitted all over me, so I forgive you, because I don't. I think they should be tried for what they did, because it was wrong according to all of the laws of all of the universes, both of the true humans and of the humanoids. And that should not just be easily forgiven. Not that I am in some kind of revenge mode whatsoever. These are the cosmic laws. When you shit up and you really harm the highest good of the many, and you prevent souls from doing what they're supposed to be able to do in this system, you should be trialed, as I have been many times, because trialing is not about, yeah, then we throw you in jail. This is the karmic laws of recirculation. Either you move on because you have worked for it and you are in alignment with the cosmic laws that leads to elevation or ascension, or you have worked against the law, so you regress. You step down a bit because you clearly haven't learned how to work for the highest good of the many. So you must be in place in accordance with what you know and who and what you are. And I know I'm emotional about it. I'm not all over it. So I did clearly have a little bit of more suffering to deal with there until I get it cleared and extinguished. And it's no longer something that's driving me. But right now it's a driver, similarly as the warrior thing in me. It's a driving force I have. So that is also it definitely leads to more suffering. But it leads to investigation. It leads to understanding of who and what I am, and it leads me to the timeline. So this is interesting, because we have, I'm done with the craving of the physical world, because I've been there, done that, but I'm not done with my inner world. There's still a craving there. There is still a desire. There's still a thirst for justice. So I still have a thirst, but that's okay. Then I can see, okay, I'm probably not done. That's probably why I went through that trial with the avian mammals, because they could see I was not done. You're not done here. You still have unfinished business, girl, even though I'm technically not either male or female in that form, but it doesn't matter. But you're not done here. So you get up to the north, and there we will put you through a series of tests, a series of recalibration. We will put you under reorganization, and we can see that it will fit into our purpose. And at the same time, you will clear out your timelines, and then you're done. you're not done yet. so that would be that. And you see, you go from this sadness and this, and then you go into an understanding, and you see, okay, there are, we could call them the white hats if you like. White hats are typically within the councils that used to go on the corrupted side, but then at some point kind of feel, yeah, this is the completion cycle. Perhaps we should make amends and get things back together as they're supposed to. So therefore, that was been said to the councils, that they were fed information that was incorrect. I can see that now, that council that judged me, that's why, anyway. So I'm just seeing the whole, that's why when you work with these things, you get that pattern, you get different energy openings where just kind of things fall in place, and then you get suffering, and then you work through it. And in the beginning, it's a little bit more heavy than what I'm doing here, because I've been doing it so many times. So I'm accustomed to these different emotions and chemical releases and openings and shut down and glimpses here and there. And then the pattern just unfolds and just and that's when you have clear perception. That's when they talk about in the awakening process, when you have clarity. That's it. That's where you just see the whole pattern. Just say, and you just, if it doesn't even say a sound, but that's energetic. It has, if it did have a sound that were hearable for the physical ears, because it's an energetic sound, you would hear it. You will know exactly. That's it. And it gives this release, this balance, this coherence. That's the best way, coherence, where it's like you have the whole pattern that unfolds, and at the same time you are so sharp in your perception. You're so focused. It's like you just clearly, it's just clear as day. That's the best. These are again what the elder told me there. You will perceive things, but you cannot explain it, because it is nameless. It is wordless. It has no equivalent within inside this reality. And that is what it is. That's where the path, the crossroads will dissolve, and you will stand in the center point, and you will be focused in that clarity of the center point of who and what you are, and just knowing that's it. And it's not because I say, well, I am that, and I stood there, and I know how I look, I know how my true being looks, I know how I'm supposed to look, and I'm in this weird physical form, which is also interesting. But it doesn't matter, because it's just a version of me. That's the impermanence. I know it's just a version of me. That's the version I have when I'm here, but it doesn't matter. And I know it's history. I can see when I see that version of me, and I connect to that version of me, and I integrate that version of me, the timelines, that part of that version of me opens up, and I have another history set. I have another level of understanding of who and what I am and what I've been doing here and onward and so forth. And I entered into this planet via the Niburian gate. So I'm exiting out of the Egyptian gate. So that's interesting. So when we go with why do I have this affiliation with the Hebrews and the Sumerians and all of what's going on there, and trying to investigate that, and went to Israel when I was young, and then the whole affiliation of Liz's life, dreaming of Egypt and having these recallings that goes with that, and goes again also interestingly enough with America, because that's under the Egyptian gate as well. So all of these kind of things that goes with the Western world, or the Northern Hemisphere and the Southern Hemisphere and the Eastern world, are two, like yin and yang, in a dysfunctional coherence, right? Because they are pushing to each other. It's not a balance point. It's actually showing the discord of our world, but showing that dynamic of where a soul can be born and under what circumstances. And it's all determined by the cosmic laws, or the Dharma. So the transition and the transmutation of these three fields of everything that we are is technically, it's a long line of work, which I want to work a little bit more with in advanced psychotherapy, because I've now made the sciences, but we still need the practicality of it. That's some of the things I'm working on right now. And that's why I'm making this series, because this is me working from the big theories, putting them into context, getting to my own weaknesses, and getting to my own practicality around it, so I can figure out, okay, how can I take the theory done in practice with myself first as the first practitioner, and put it into context and put it into a unity and figure out what should I keep and what should I dissolve, and what would be my goal with other people. Would it be to bring them into past lives, as I did when I worked as a healer, and clear out the past timelines in a joint field where I expand my energy field into theirs, activate the sequences they want to work with, and by that they are a bystander or a viewer along with me, because I amplify them to be able to see that. That was part of what I was doing as a healer. And I got that understanding of how to do that by going into my memory of the Native American and what I was capable of doing in my life as that Native American woman, and how I was capable of crossing over souls. So that's how I got this ability, both before death and after death, as in working with how can you get released before death and how can you cross over when you're dead. And one of the things that I mourned enormously was that the loved one was Japanese, that was killed. He was beaten to death, which was also a great trauma to observe. And I have the sounds and disgusting. But the whole and then be drawn away myself and being in that enormous mourning sadness, and then being raped and killed, and all of these men and their smells, disgusting. Because they were very dirty. But what I remember from that situation was this whole kind of, they can do whatever the fuck they want to do with my body, because it's not me, it doesn't matter. But what I was mourning the most was that I was not, and I'm sorry getting emotional here again, because that's also one of the things that is in my heart field. I was not allowed to cross him over. And I did that. Sorry about that. I did that a couple of years ago, and I went into the memory. I went into the capacity I had. I stepped completely back into a previous version of myself. And I did the singing, I did the rituals, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I didn't make a campfire, but it was almost like that. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I completely absorbed myself in that past version of me. I spoke the language, I sang the songs that has been transmitted and given over through generations, which I got from my mom, and all of these kind of, not my mom, technically my dad, but when I say my mom in that one, how much should I go into this? When you're a medicine woman, you have your physical mom and you have your inner mom, that is, which others have called guides, but you can see her in a perspective. Anyways, we'll just leave that one. So what I've got from that, and I revived that. And that's part of why I can do the crossing over today, because I practiced that an entire life, and I got it from a tradition that goes with some of the Native American tribes that goes back to the Pleiadian system. So that's how you get your capacity. So that's part of your Dharma as well in this life, that the capacities you had and you developed that are for the highest good of the many will remain over lifetime. So it's not just negative karma you carry with you, the sadness, the pain, the hurting, the traumas, but you are also carrying with the capacities that can do good for the entire humanity. And that's part of the bodhisattva. When you get to that point, you understand you have these capacities. Are you then just going to leave and flip the finger and say you're on your own because you still clearly haven't gotten it yet, right? So that's the discord that goes on there. And I still have that discord. I still just want to turn around whenever I have that gate. I still think to myself, should I just continue? But I know I have to continue. I have to continue now because it's the completion cycle. That's again where the cosmic laws come in. I might feel pulled to take care of the weak and the suppressed and which I've been doing in this life as well, because that goes far, far back to the time of the beginning of the fourth cycle and what I chose to take on to me at that time. So it's built into me. Because what is a warrior in that capacity? It's technically a guardian. It protects something, right? So that's part of me as well. So I'm always in this struggle. And that's why if you ask me, Randy, you don't want to be a teacher. Why do you keep doing it? Because I'm leaving, but I can't just leave without leaving something behind. And I'm doing the same stupid things everybody else that have been here and leaving are doing that reaches some level of understanding of how things work. We are always leaving something behind. So I'm trying to be smart about it. In the beginning, I wrote books, so they will remain, but everything else is now done as podcast in virtual reality. So when I get old, or I can get whoever's left behind me to delete it when I'm gone. So there will be no kind of, oh yeah, these teachings were left behind. And that's also a reason why these teachings are not left behind. Because when we leave and the teachings leave with us. They're not supposed to be handed over and taught by others. Each person in this life has to reach that enlightenment in themselves. You have to be a lamp on your own right, not relying on teachers. That's the empowerment. This is your search. It's not done by being taught something. And that's where, again, when we talk about why have I not gone deeper into Buddhism, because since I have this understanding of it, because it's not supposed to be taught. It's supposed to be experienced. It's supposed to be accessed in meditation. It is an inner work. It's an inner work of knowledge. But I also know that we are up against time here. So people have to, there's a lot of doubt going on because it's one of the prohibiting technologies. So people need confirmation. And that's why I made it. I made it as a confirmation. I'm not making it as giving the truth. Because if you ask me, what do I want for people, if I were to choose in the entire world, what could I choose for people that if they would wake up the day after, what would I give to them? That they would know who they truly are. Remembering. That's what I want to give. If I can ignite that, that's what I will do. So aside from all of the other stuff I have gathered over my many lifetimes here of knowledge and capacities, my main function and what I want to do in this life is just to try to make people remember. And that's probably why I ended up in psychotherapy and the way I've been working, that's the main goal, to get the awareness back of the laws, as well as why we are here, as well as what you are, not who you are, but what you are. So that's also the underlining level of my work. And that goes back to the Pillar Project, because that was what we were dealing with there as well. So that's the deepest level of me, and why my core engineering, if you like, inside this solar system. So with that, I want to end this second sequence, and in the next one, I want to go into the Eightfold Path and continue with that, because then it suddenly just becomes very simple. Yes, you have level 1 where you're kind of saying, don't lie, and all of the 10 commandments that are captured in all wisdom literature all over the globe, in all sorts of philosophies and religions and whatever you want to call it. But again, just saying, well, Buddhism doesn't classify itself as a religion, but the Mahayana is a fucking religion. But when we talk about the Theravada, then it is the doctrine of the elders, and it's not even a philosophy. I think that is wrong, because that first and foremost is a Greek word. And secondly, yes, it is the love for wisdom or for search of knowledge, and that could be classified, and that would be the word that we have. But it is a doctrine. And it is a doctrine that is either deliberately or in cloaking or in distortion has been given over from the elders, and it does come from the high councils. I have absolutely no doubt about that. And similarly, if I do choose to go in and investigate Christianity in the same way, working with the Gospels, which I could, there I would find the same going back and saying, okay, we're here clearly talking about a group of white hats. So the detection should be these, but should I not protect them, right? Anyways, that group that is behind this level of understanding, they are gone. So that's also why I'm just coming clean now, because that group is gone. They have been part of some of the ones I released, have been releasing the last 5 years. So that's been part of my work the last 5 years. So that's what I keep talking about. We need to go back into our past to get our capacities. But we also need to clear our timelines and evaporate and release ourselves and not get stuck there and identify ourselves with it, because that's the past. It's gone. We need to clear it. It's an anchor point. It's keeping us back, and we need to complete and move on. So that's the schism that we're in. And that is what I feel that Buddhism captures better than anything else that is left on the planet. And I would say, thank goodness for that it is so mental, that it has been put into specific types of what we call interpretations, which we can weed away. But those of us who have been doing this before, and those of us who have an inbuilt understanding of how the world exists, at least that's how I feel it. I see it more mirrored in Buddhism than I see it mirrored in Christianity or in Judaism or in the Sumerian text or whatever. They mirror something else. So we're again going back to this, the different lineages that have different purposes and functions on our planet. And those of us who are ready to go, we will fall into the group of the different teaching systems that are left for us by the white hats, so that we can get to the complete teaching system, not get muddled away in a rabbit hole of the outer teachings, but go to the esoteric level of it. And that is what I've always been working with, the esoteric level, which you can only access in meditation and contemplation. You can never find the true answers in the written word. It can only be found from the knowledge, the depth of your soul. And with that one, I want to end this video. Thank you.